Hey, Jesus, what are you doing?
I've been raised from the dead. I'm breaking out of this tomb planning to visit my disciples in Galilee.
Ooh, boy, I love a good fairy tale. Apologist Eric Manning of Testify has been going hard at pagan parallels to Jesus, kicking against the pricks, as one might say. To wit, see several of his latest videos, including Your Pagan Parallels Prove Nothing, the Napoleon Myth, the 2023 World Series Myth, Jesus Wants to Help but Refuses to Copy Asclepius, and Resurrected Jesus Discovers Romulus Parallels. As you can tell, he's not triggered by this stuff at all. Seeing as Eric can't help himself in continuing to engage my special area of study, whilst refusing to properly understand any of it, we'll be addressing his latest bird dropping of cope and apologia concerning New Testament parallels with the legendary founder of Rome, Romulus. Buckle up, because we're about to crash head-on into stupid. For those unfamiliar with the story, Romulus, first king of Rome, was taking stock of his army when a thunderstorm arose and enveloped him in a cloud. His body thereafter went missing, and the people were grief-stricken. Rumors arose that the Senate had murdered him, but in reality, Romulus had been transformed into an immortal being, ascending to heaven to be among the gods. This was made known upon his glorious appearance to a trusted witness, Proculus Julius, to whom he delivered a great commission for Rome before ascending on high again. He was thereafter hailed the Son of a God, receiving praise, adoration, and worship. The parallels with the New Testament's depiction of Jesus' death and exaltation include a missing body, darkness over the land, obstruction by a cloud, transformation to divine power and status, newfound immortality, ascension to heaven, glorious appearance to a witness, and a great commission before departing to the divine realm. The story of Romulus is not, I repeat, is not a carbon copy of the resurrection and exaltation of Christ. They do indeed differ in many details. What is noteworthy is the correspondence in terms of archetypal and narrative motifs. Case in point, Romeo and Juliet differs from West Side Story in many, many ways. But if you can't tell that the latter is inspired by the former, an updated version of forbidden love across feuding lines, then you're idiotically missing the forest for the trees. With that rather rudimentary understanding of comparative literature that I can't even believe I'm having to explain for the 100th time as if it were somehow newfangled or complex analysis, let's now turn to Eric's gross incompetence.
Hey, Jesus, what are you doing?
I've been raised from the dead. I'm breaking out of this tomb planning to visit my disciples in Galilee.
Well, Captain Obvious, I can see you're making your grand escape, but isn't this a bit too Romulus-like?
Romulus?
Yeah, missing body and all, very Roman Emperor-esque, Julius Augustus.
Apart from the minor detail that I'm right here in the flesh and Romulus is as fictional as unicorns, there's also the fact that Romulus didn't actually die, and he disappeared in a thunderstorm.
Yes, Romulus is a fictional character. In the ancient world, it was common to deify historical persons according to mythic tropes inspired by fictional characters. Examples include Julius and Augustus Caesar, Alexander the Great, Apollonius of Tyana, Hadrian's lover Antinous, etc., all of whom were modeled variously on fictional figures like Romulus, Hercules, Asclepius, or Osiris. I've explained this to apologists, including Eric, so many times now that I find myself rehearsing it to strangers in public bathrooms during my dreams. I'm rewarded with 0 nocturnal emissions and words that fall on deaf ears. And no, Romulus didn't die. Neither is that the point. Regardless of their mortal fate, both Jesus and Romulus are exalted to new divine status as immortal beings in heaven. Paul is quite clear about this in Romans 1:4, where Jesus was appointed the Son of God in power by his resurrection from the dead, and in the Philippians hymn, where God exalted him to the highest place and installed him as Lord over all creation. Either which way, it's classic Greco-Roman apotheosis, that is, transformation to godhood and relocation to the heavenly sphere. The details differ, but both stories are playing on the same basic theme and associated elements. Eric appears to divert attention from the missing body motif in the Gospels by having Jesus declare, "I'm right here in the flesh." But make no mistake, the prior absence of Jesus' body is a critical narrative element across all 4 canonical Gospels, presaging the announcement that he's been raised to immortal life. This was a common motif in the Greco-Roman milieu from which Christianity sprang, told not just of Romulus, but also of Hercules, Aristeus, Aeneas, Empedocles, Apollonius, Alcmena, and others. The absence of the hero's body or corpse typically signified that they'd been transformed to new divine life as a god or goddess, now immortal and destined for heavenly glory. The Christian tale fits right in line with the literary context of its cultural and historical surroundings. That's simple enough to comprehend for most people, but for apologists like Eric, it will bounce off his brain like pissing on cellophane.
What are you two discussing as you're walking along?
Okay, Jesus, it's you, we get it. But you can't just pop in on the road like this, all radiant and dazzling. It's like a Romulus ripoff. Are you going to drop a great commission on us next?
Seriously, first off, I'm not all sparkly and shiny. Look again.
Wow. I've recommended several books to Eric that he won't read, but one that he should seriously consider is called The Bible. Both scholars and theologians have long recognized the transfiguration of Jesus as an anticipation of his heavenly glory in his exalted post-resurrection state. In these accounts, his clothing becomes as white as light, and his face shines like the sun, corresponding to the exalted Christ in Revelation 1:16 and the blinding light appearance to Paul in Acts 9 and 22. That's right, Paul was momentarily blinded, so Jesus must have been pretty fucking bright. Granted, the post-resurrection appearances in the Gospels don't include this detail, the motif is most certainly present elsewhere in the New Testament.
And second, I'm not sporting any mythical armor like Romulus did when he supposedly chatted with Julius Proculus.
That's right. Romulus had armor. Jesus didn't have armor. For a guy who supposedly loves Jesus, why is Eric depicting him as dumber than Lauren Boebert sucking on vape and cock at the Apollo? Fuck all y'all!
Third, I already appeared to the Marys and Salome at the tomb. Did Romulus ever appear to women at a tomb? Nope.
Jesus Christ, Jesus. The motif in question is post-mortem or post-mortal appearances to witnesses, whether they be men, women, non-binary, gender-fluid, genderqueer, intersexual, asexual, or pansexual. This, again, was a remarkably common motif in the Hellenistic world that produced Christianity. Other examples beyond Romulus include Asclepius, Apollonius, Aristeus, Caesar, and Hercules. Hercules, incidentally, did appear to a woman, his grieving mother Alcmena. He bid her refrain from mourning, for he'd been granted his place in heaven among the gods, fully alive and immortalized. That sure smacks of John's Gospel, where Mary is boo-hooing Jesus until he consoles her and assures her that he's on his way to the sky to live forever with a god.
And I'm going to meet my disciples while they're holed up in a house hiding for the fear of the Jews. Not very Romulus-like.
West Side Story takes place in 50s era New York. Not very Romeo and Juliet-like. Forget about healing amputees. Why can't God make stupid hurt?
And fourth, Romulus didn't give a great commission. He said to cultivate the arts of war and basically go conquer the world.
Yeah? Your point?
Listen, Cleopas, I'm not handing out military training manuals here. I'm just telling them to make disciples of all nations and that I've done something about their sins.
By definition, a commission is an instruction, command, or duty given to a person or group of people. Romulus's Great Commission was for the assurance of Roman rule before departing, and Jesus's was for the assurance of spreading the gospel to secure his kingdom before departing. Either which way, delivering such lofty instructions for the posterity of one's people before ascending on high is a uniquely specific motif. Abraham Lincoln never did that. Stacy's mom never pulled that off. Pretty sure Tupac didn't manage that one either. But both Jesus and the legendary founder of the sprawling empire that ruled Jesus' world back then did. Not much of a stretch to think that ancient authors were emulating a widely known and pervasive narrative in their Greco-Roman setting.
Let's be clear, there's nothing remotely Romulus-like about this scenario. I'm simply here to say, hey, I'm alive, and by the way, sending my spirit your way to empower you to spread the news that their sins have been forgiven. No thunderstorms, no talking animals, no giant comets hanging around for weeks.
How about the darkness that comes over the land in multiple accounts of Romulus and the Synoptic Gospels, or the cloud that envelops each of them as they're taken away to heaven? In both cases, you have ominous meteorological phenomena heightening the narrative tension at key moments in the process of their deification. And Matthew goes the whole way of including earthquakes and the risen dead, just as we find in the Roman tradition of Julius Caesar, another Romulan tale. Dodgeball Eric has never met a red herring he doesn't like.
Hey, Jesus, what's the deal?
Ascending into heaven, guys. Going to sit at the right hand of the Father and send my spirit promise.
You're going up there?
Well, where else am I supposed to go? Isn't that what you'd understand as returning to the Father?
Don't look now, Eric, but you just made our case for us. Ascending to the heavens to return to one's pre-incarnated state among the gods is precisely what Romulus does per Plutarch. It's the same basic idea, just with a monotheistic twist in Christianity. And where else was he supposed to go besides doing the same damn thing that every other deified or legendary figure did in that mythic landscape? Heck, I don't know. Maybe stick around and establish his kingdom on earth like he was supposed to per messianic proclamations. Like he could have done that. But since he'd been hammered to death on a stick, his grieving followers spun some unoriginal bullshit about him lifting off to the stratosphere, marking them as common thinkers of their time, and thereby making the claim that he lives completely and conveniently unfalsifiable, just as it was for all the other immortalized heroes in the neighborhood. Go figure. This is what you must do to circumnavigate the little problem of nowhere to be seen because full-on dead. I'm kidding, he does occasionally show up on toast.
Listen, Jesus, we're a bit behind the times with our heavens up there worldview, but trust us, future folks will find that idea silly.
Yes.
And the whole cloud thing? It's basically a Romulus reboot.
Pretty much.
How about shrinking down like Ant-Man and disappearing into the quantum realm? That would be dope.
Or how about turning into a human suppository and rocketing up Al Bundy's ass? How about literally anything besides what everyone, their mother, and their camel was doing back then?
You are one fine $500,000 piece of beef.
This has been a lazy and dishonest Apologist production. Fuck me, he finally got something right. Scholar of early Christianity M. David Litwa summarizes this topic perfectly. If Christians were socialized in predominantly Greco-Roman environments, it is no surprise that they employed and adapted common traits of deities and deified men to exalt their Lord to divine status. I acknowledge that the perceived uniqueness of Jesus was part of the reality of early Christian experience and discourse. Out of their devotion to Jesus, early Christians depicted his divinity as unique and thus superior to any competitor. This desire to go one up on one's rivals is part of the dynamics of a missionary religion seeking to expand its influence in a diverse religious marketplace. To use an economic analogy, Christians modified the design of many competing products on the market, that is, other divine and deified individuals, and, after more rigorous and widespread advertisement, presented these modified religious ideas under their own trademark. In the days before copyright, such competitive assimilation was rife and effective in the marketplace of ideas. This sort of competitive assimilation is perhaps the major factor that produces both similarity and difference when we compare Christian and non-Christian cases of corporeal immortalization. In other words, adopting and adapting religious ideas and motifs from the surrounding culture, from a variety of stories about deities and deified men, Romulus being just one among them, and syncretizing those ideas with prenatal Judaism, produced precisely the kind of similarities and differences we should expect. Just as West Side Story adapted the general theme and motifs of Romeo and Juliet to suit its new narrative, producing both similarities and differences, just as Seth MacFarlane did when he spun Family Guy out of The Simpsons. This kind of comparative observation and analysis is straightforward and obvious to anyone but an apologist. Their cognitive biases and extreme nearsightedness prevent them from grasping concepts that are easily comprehensible to a junior high school student. As always, never underestimate the power of religious zeal to make otherwise intelligent people look astonishingly idiotic.
I was challenged by some atheists one time when they said, "Let me ask you something, Eric. Would you behave differently if you didn't believe in God?" I said, absolutely. I mean, you'd have to make sure the jail cell could hold me because I'd be trying to break out, man. I would do anything under the sun if I truly believed that there was no God and there were no moral absolutes.
If you've enjoyed the shit out of this video, give me a like and subscribe. Consider joining the Patreon. I'd appreciate any support you can provide. And thank you a million times over to my current patrons. Your support and encouragement means the world to me. It truly does. This has been Derek Bennett with Atheologica, where religion is fascinating and stupid. God, this shit is stupid. Stupid! We killed him with bears. Oh, shit. That's what you get for making fun of a bald guy. Good on you, God. Good job. Good job. You killed the kids. Good job.